The narcissist does not fear your anger. He does not fear your hatred. He feeds on it. He doesn't fear your tears. He drinks them for breakfast. There is only one thing in this universe a narcissist truly, deeply fears. It is the moment you stop feeling anything for them at all. It is the moment the empath gets fed up. Carl Jung discovered something that would terrify every manipulator. A fed-up empath is more dangerous to them than they ever imagined, not because the empath becomes cruel, but because they become unbreakable. Jung documented a psychological phenomenon so profound, it challenged everything we thought we knew about power dynamics. He watched empaths, those gentle, giving souls who absorb everyone's pain, reach a breaking point. A point that transforms them into something far more formidable than their abusers. Jung called this the alchemical moment. It is when years of absorbed poison suddenly transmute into pure psychological gold. The empath stops being a passive vessel for others' darkness. They become an active force of light that no manipulation can dim. This journey is about turning your greatest perceived weakness into your most devastating weapon. Before we begin, a moment of recognition is needed. Go to the comments and answer this. Have you ever been told you are too sensitive? Let's see how many warriors are in this room. The roll call has been sounded. Now, let's understand why that sensitivity, once awakened, is something the narcissist unconsciously fears more than death. To understand the awakened empath, you first need to see the unawakened one. Their gentleness was never weakness. It was hidden strength, waiting for its moment. Jung said, the most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. For empaths, this means facing an even harder truth. They hold a power they were taught to fear. The power to see, to feel, and to heal. This is the wounded healer, the one who gains wisdom through pain. But Jung noticed something rare. At the breaking point, this archetype doesn't shatter. It transforms. It becomes the sovereign healer, someone who heals from strength, not from sacrifice. This transformation is not gentle. It is what Jung called enantiodromia, the principle that everything, eventually, turns into its opposite. The endless giver becomes the conscious chooser. The perpetual absorber becomes the strategic reflector. Modern neuroscience confirms what Jung intuited. Empaths' brains are wired differently. Research shows they have hyperactive mirror neurons. They process emotions on a deeper level. But what Jung realized, and what science is just catching up to, is that the same wiring that makes empaths vulnerable also makes them incredibly powerful when they learn to direct it consciously. But that is not the most dangerous part. The most dangerous part is what happens when an empath finally integrates what Jung called the shadow. All the repressed anger from being misunderstood. All the boundaries they were told were selfish to have. All the self-protection they've been taught to deny. Jung observed that empaths don't just suppress their own negative emotions. They become unconscious containers for everyone else's shadow material. The rage their parents couldn't express. The grief their friends couldn't process. The manipulation their partners couldn't acknowledge. The empath becomes a walking trauma repository. But Jung discovered something extraordinary. When empaths finally reach their limit, they don't just release this accumulated shadow. They alchemize it. They transform years of absorbed poison into what he called psychological gold. This is the process Jung termed the transcendent function, the ability to transform opposite forces into something entirely new. And this is where Jung's observations become terrifying for narcissists. This transformation unfolds in 3 stages. Stage 1. The recognition. The empath suddenly sees the pattern. All those times they absorbed blame that wasn't theirs. All those moments they apologized for others' bad behavior. All those years they believed that love meant endless giving while receiving crumbs. Jung called this the lifting of the veil, when unconscious patterns become conscious. The game is revealed. For years, Sarah absorbed her colleague's projections, believing his gaslighting, questioning her own perceptions. But when she applied Jung's shadow work, she began to see the pattern. She stopped explaining herself, stopped defending her work, stopped trying to prove her competence to someone whose opinion was irrelevant. Stage 2. The integration. The empath doesn't reject their sensitivity. They weaponize it. They use their hyperperceptive abilities not to absorb and please, but to see through manipulation before it even begins. They can read people's unconscious motivations with surgical precision. They can feel the narcissist's emotional state beneath their performance. They sense the lie before it is fully formed. They become what Jung called psychologically immune to his manipulations. The family manipulator, Michael's mother, had controlled him for years through guilt and shame. But when Michael integrated Jung's teachings, he stopped participating in the drama. He felt compassion for his mother's pain without taking responsibility for it. He set boundaries without explanation. His mother's manipulations became desperate, then eventually stopped. Stage 3. The sovereignty. The empath stops chasing approval. They become what Jung called individuated, whole, and self-guided. They no longer need others to complete them because they have faced their own shadow and made peace with it. Take Lisa. She had been in a relationship where she was always walking on eggshells. When she found Jung's work on projection, she saw the truth. Her partner was using her as a mirror for their own self-hate. Lisa stopped defending, stopped explaining, stopped trying to earn love from someone who couldn't give it. The relationship ended fast. Without her unconscious role in the cycle, there was nothing left to hold it together. In each case, the empath didn't turn cruel or bitter. They became conscious. And awareness, as Jung saw it, is the biggest threat to unconscious control. Here's the shift. The fed-up empath doesn't just leave the toxic pattern. They turn it into wisdom that protects them from future traps. Jung called this the integration of opposites. The empath learns to hold compassion and clarity, openness and boundaries, love and self-protection. They become what I call the integrated warrior healer, someone who can love deeply while staying fully safe. This is what Jung called the transcendent function, a state where opposites merge and create something greater. The empath's old weakness becomes strength, and their old strength doesn't fade, it matures into wisdom. This refusal to participate is more powerful than any attack. It is based on Jung's principle of psychological nonviolence. The awakened empath doesn't need to fight the narcissist. They simply withdraw their participation from the dynamic. Without the empath's unconscious cooperation, the entire manipulative system collapses. Jung observed that this withdrawal often triggers what he called a shadow projection crisis in the narcissist. When the empath stops carrying the narcissist's hidden feelings, A narcissist has no choice but to face them. For someone who has spent life running from their inner world, this is unbearable. They may push harder, become aggressive, or rush to find a new source of supply. But the awakened empath doesn't move. They've learned what Jung called psychological immunity, the ability to watch another person's storm without getting dragged into it. This isn't coldness, it's clarity. The empath can feel compassion for the narcissist's pain while refusing to feed their dysfunction. They can love the person but reject the pattern. And that balance is something a narcissist cannot grasp or control. Jung saw 3 stages of empath development. Knowing where you are shows how vulnerable you might be. Level 1, the unconscious empath. You feel everything but understand nothing. You take on others' emotions without knowing it. You think love means endless giving, and you see boundaries as selfish. This makes you a target for energy vampires. At this stage, your empathy controls you. You're like a sponge soaking up everything around you. Level 2, the awakening empath. You start to see your gift more clearly and notice how it's been used against you. You begin learning about projection, shadow work, and boundaries. You see patterns in your relationships and take ownership of your part in them. Here, you begin to practice conscious empathy, choosing when and how to use your gift and telling the difference between your feelings and someone else's. Educa pausa 3 secondi. Level 3, the sovereign empath. You've integrated shadow work and individuation. You can feel deeply without being flooded and love fully without losing yourself. You reach psychological sovereignty, staying rooted in your truth while open to others. At this stage, empathy becomes wisdom. You can sense others' emotions without carrying them and give support without giving yourself away. The journey from level 1 to level 3 requires what Jung called the courage to become conscious. You must be willing to see how you've participated in your own victimization, not to blame yourself, but to reclaim your power to choose differently. But Jung issued a warning about empathic awakening that every fed-up empath must understand. With great psychological power comes great responsibility. The awakened empath holds powerful abilities to see through masks, to spot deception, to read hidden motives. But these gifts can heal or harm. They must be used with awareness and integrity. Jung reminded us, the goal of individuation is not invulnerability. It is authenticity. The awakened empath must guard against becoming what they once suffered under. Someone who uses psychological insight to manipulate rather than heal. The highest expression of empathic awakening is what Jung called conscious compassion, the ability to love without enabling, to help without rescuing, to see clearly without judging harshly. This is the difference between empathic wisdom and empathic revenge. Some empaths, when they first awaken to their power, want to use it to hurt those who hurt them. They want to expose narcissists, to shame manipulators, to make others feel the pain they felt. But Jung understood that this keeps you trapped in the very dynamic you're trying to escape. True empathic sovereignty means rising above the need for revenge. It means using your gifts to create healthy relationships rather than destroy unhealthy ones. It means being dangerous to manipulation while remaining safe for authentic connection. The world hangs on a thin thread, and that thread is the psyche of man. Carl Jung. The fed-up empath's ultimate power is not in what they can do to others, but in what they can create for themselves. A life of authentic relationships, conscious choices, and genuine peace. Remember Jung's discovery about fed-up empaths being more dangerous than narcissists ever imagined. The danger was never in becoming cruel or vengeful. The danger was in becoming conscious, sovereign, and immune to manipulation. Jung wrote in his final works, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." For empaths, this means embracing both their sensitivity and their strength, their compassion and their discernment. The empath who finally says enough doesn't lose their ability to feel deeply. They gain the ability to feel wisely. They don't close their heart. They learn to open it selectively to those who have earned access through their own consciousness and authenticity. Your sensitivity was never your weakness. It was your early warning system, alerting you to toxic people and environments. Your deep feeling was never too much. It was the full spectrum of human experience that others had learned to numb. Your desire for authentic connection was never naive. It was your soul calling you toward relationships worthy of your depth. The narcissist feared your awakening because they knew that once you saw clearly, you could never be fooled again. Once you understood your worth, you could never be convinced to settle for less. Your journey from unconscious victim to conscious sovereign is not just personal transformation. It is a contribution to collective healing. Every empath who awakens makes it easier for the next one to do the same. So remember, you are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are not too deep. You are exactly what this unconscious world needs to wake up. If you are ready to stop being dangerous to yourself and start being dangerous to manipulation, then make your declaration. Go to the comments and claim your new identity. Write, "My sensitivity is my superpower." It is a declaration of your power, a commitment to conscious, sovereign empathy. Subscribe to the Thinker's Codex. The revolution has begun.